In a world with only hot takes,
Two college friends try to cool down sports media.
join Jack and Jared every week as they tackle the biggest stories in the NFL.
And give the reasonable football analysis you won't hear anywhere else.
Welcome to 710 Sports.
Welcome back to 710 Sports with
Jack.
and Jared. Thanks for joining us for episode 34, I believe, of 710 Sports. A little off-season episode here. I know we took a bit of a break from the pod after the Super Bowl, but we just needed to chill out a bit, maybe go across country, have a little Cali vacation. Some of us, right, Jack?
Yeah, California's nice. The West Coast, baby. Bit warm, a bit sunny. Sun shining. It was actually pretty rainy there when I was there. Not what I expected. I must have brought it from here because that was also just as the East Coast was getting a bit colder, at least up here. After a very warm February, I left and dodged a lot of the cold March,
and the big storms too.
And the big storms. Yeah, I missed a couple of big storms. Definitely fortunate there. I actually like the storms. Which is nice. I did get greeted with some rainstorms though in California. That's the silver lining.
Hey, you know what? Maybe did you see any big names out there? On your way in or out. Maybe you saw Baker or Jalen Ramsey leaving.
I was waiting. I was on the look. I was actually on the lookout when I was flying from LAX to Boston. I was doing that flight. I was on the lookout to see if I could see any famous players and or coaches who I might recognize, or just anyone who is large and football player sized. Did not see any of that, unfortunately.
You see Sean McVay coming to Boston to have an interview with Bill Belichick.
Yeah, right. He's the new offensive coordinator. Yeah, that's right. I was on the lookout. To give our viewers the hot takes, the fresh what is it? And now, never mind.
Reasonable
Never
analysis.
mind. I can't think of the word. No, not reasonable. Not
That's
reasonable.
What we give here at 710 Sports.
Scoops.
Oh,
that's what the word I was looking for. The fresh scoops. I was looking to give our viewers
brain freeze with
the fresh scoops
over here. All right, the
Yeah,
audience already left.
For.
This is a sports podcast where this is off-season 710 Sports
comedy podcast. Now
it becomes a comedy podcast that we only think is funny. That's we're here to talk
Speaking
about.
Speaking of comedy,
scoops. Yeah, we're here to talk about all the scoops from when we've been gone, and I'm gonna get us started, right? Because I got some thoughts on one of the bigger moves so far of the off season, and I'd like to hear what you think about it. But I'll start, right?
Go ahead.
So here's the thing: we know that Chicago was thinking about moving off of this first overall pick, right? But the Panthers. The trade package that they gave up for the first overall pick when they were at 9, basically they ended up swapping the first and the 9th pick, so sort of like a first round swap, so to get up above a bunch of other teams. And then they gave up 2 seconds, another first, so really a first and 2 seconds with the and then a swap, and DJ Moore, a good wide receiver. That would probably be really beneficial for any young QB, like the one that they're going to draft, or Justin Fields, which is why the Bears wanted him, right? Basically, the Bears, I think that the Panthers wanted to give another first-round pick. They wanted to give 2 firsts and 2 seconds and the swap. And they were like, no, we don't want 2 firsts. We want more, right? As in DJ Moore.
Literally,
So they do this, right? And I remember seeing this trade and thinking, wow, that is a lot for just for the swap, right? Like it just felt like they didn't give that up to get an additional first round pick. They gave it up to just swap positions and jump those teams. I know if you look at who was above them, you might think, hey, maybe all 3 or 4. Let's just say 4, right? Because there's 4 QBs, right? 2 really good two good prospects, and 2 maybe QBs that are going to need some work, right? That we're not so sure.
Yeah. Like project prospects, guys who might have a lot of raw talent. Like there might be a lot of raw stuff there. The Josh Allen-esque as a prototype.
And it's pretty normal, right? So that's 4 guys. Half of them, like we think are better prospects. The other half are projects. Okay, so you have Chicago wasn't going to take it, but someone I guess could have jumped up there above Carolina. But let's say Chicago stays. Houston's going to draft a quarterback. The Colts may draft a quarterback.
The Raiders, were they above them?
The Raiders were 7 and Atlanta was 8. So that's 4. Unless somebody below Carolina
thought below was going to trade up
all the way, right. Or, so like, For the problem for me, right, is like even if they don't get a quarterback, it's like I don't know if it's good enough. These QBs, I don't know if they're good enough to gamble on, right? In the sense of like even if it's like a blue chip like a Trevor Lawrence who's supposed to be a quarterback since he was like 8 years old or whatever, or whatever it is, there's always a guy who's taken first. There's almost always a guy taken first who's a quarterback, and even those guys are busts. Like look at Baker Mayfield; he was first overall. Yeah. I want to pull up just and give you the first round quarterbacks taken, and this is not new news. People are fully aware that the hit rate is not very good.
The Sam Darnolds, the Mitchell Trubisky's, right? These guys are. I don't know if they were all 1. I think Trubisky was at 2, but.
We'll start in 2013 because that was 10 years ago, right? We'll start in 2013.
Big 10 years ago, fan.
First round QBs taken was EJ Manuel. He was taken 16th overall. Okay,
bad quarterback class or bad.
Right. Okay, Geno Smith was taken in the 2nd round that year. Okay, so I don't know he was. But then I'll go through these a little bit faster. 2014, you had Blake Bortles, Johnny Manziel, and Teddy Bridgewater all in the first round. That's 322-32. Yeah, right? Right?
Yeah, but Manziel. Yeah, but later firsts. Hey.
Just sometimes. But think about the QBs. The QBs who were taken in the 2nd round that year were Derek Carr and Jimmy G. Right? So if you lump those in, it's still less than 50%. It's a 40% hit rate that year. And those guys are Derek Carr and Jimmy G are like maybe franchise QBs. Like Derek Carr's a franchise QB, like, Jimmy G.
I would. Yeah.
I don't know. Right. So then
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Next year, two in the first round, everyone's favorite, Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota, 1 and 2 overall, both busts in my opinion. Definitely busts. 2016, first overall, 2nd overall, Jared Goff, Carson Wentz. You got, and then you got Goff, Paxton Lynch as well.
I'm defending the Goffster.
Okay, you can call him a franchise guy. You throw Paxton Lynch in there
for a first
33% hit rate.
Yeah.
Right,
and Goff may not be what you want for a first overall pick. Like that might be, you expect that maybe from the 20th pick in the draft sort of thing, rather than first overall. Yeah.
2017, 2nd overall, Mitchell Trubisky. Patrick Mahomes at 10, then Deshaun Watson at 12. So pretty good. But Mitchell Trubisky was the first QB, right?
I want Mitch.
Of course, you've got the 2018 draft class, which was just electric. You had Baker first, Sam Darnold at 3, Josh Allen at 7, Josh Rosen at 10, and Lamar at 32. So I'd say you have 2.5 QBs there. I mean, and this just goes on and on. It keeps happening. I won't keep going. But we see this where it's like the hit rate is like at best 45%, right? Like the hit rate's at 45%. So they're trading all this. They're trading a good receiver. They're trading all these picks. Now I understand what you're saying. Well, you're trading a pick for a pick, but you could trade those picks to get an actual quarterback that you know is going to that good. Instead, you could end up with Zach Wilson.
I see what you mean.
You know what I mean?
Hey,
I don't like it. I don't like the move.
Dude, I got six words for you. I had to count them out.
Okay.
I had to count them out because I did not know it. Can't win if you don't play. Okay? You can't I see what you're saying. and that quarterbacks can have a low hit rate, but at the same time, you gotta hit unless you're gonna do some blockbuster trade. And you could argue, well, why did the Panthers get Lamar? And that's its own Lamar. That's its own segment's worth of content. So we're not gonna talk about that. But
right.
But like I mean, if they got to draft a quarterback, right? At some point, like if they have if you got to draft a quarterback, you gotta accept the low hit rate, and you gotta go get your guy, because maybe you're right. Maybe your analysis is good. Do I think their analysis will be good? Probably not. This is not a draft with a consensus guy. If we think of some drafts with consensus guys, I mean, I would say Baker. Obviously Patrick Mahomes in that draft. It should have been Patrick Mahomes. We all know this. He's the best quarterback in that draft. Even though it should have been picked over Baker. If you could redo it, he'd be a number one. But in a lot of drafts, the consensus number one, where there is a consensus number one guy, he's been pretty decent. Trevor Lawrence was a contender. He's been the best of those rookie quarterbacks. I would say. I went to the playoffs and won a playoff game. Mac Jones didn't do that. Certainly Zach Wilson didn't. Andrew Luck, Joe Burrow. I don't know if he was at the same level of prospect. But the sorts of guys that you put that are in that top echelon of prospect, who are a consensus number one pick, do tend to do well. Now, the thing why I don't like this as much is because this draft doesn't really look like it has a consensus number one. I know next year there's talk about Caleb Williams, and he's going to be the consensus, and he's like that going to be, he is the top quarterback in the draft. And there's that sort of thing from what I tell you. Obviously, this is super early, and I don't know that much about college football, but that's what I've heard. Whereas this draft, we have three guys who I wouldn't be shocked if the Panthers take first overall, which is bad for them, which is not good for them, because that means that makes it even more of a crapshoot. It isn't like, okay, Andrew Luck's on the table, there isn't even like an RG3 level, sort of guy. Put an RG3 level guy in that too. Like, there's three guys who I don't know. I don't know who they should take. I'm not doing the analysis, but I'm going to toss out the milkman Will Levis. He might still be a top 10 pick, but I would be very surprised if he goes first overall.
Dude's afraid
I'd
of
be
milk.
Shocked. Dude's afraid of milk. Right? You're going to pick him first overall.
Top 10 pick, right? I mean,
but like of the other guy, it's not like they did this big trade for Andrew Luck or Joe Burrow.
Exactly.
Right? That's the sort of guy who we knew was going to be the top pick in the draft.
But,
right?
But they might think that someone there is the Andrew.
But they think
Luck. But that's the thing is, even when it is Andrew Luck, it's like you
it doesn't always work.
For sure, the numbers are against you, and I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear the point about you're right. You do have to if you want an elite QB, you have to swing. I agree. The thing is, they could have swung at 9. I really think that they could have swung at 9 and not had to give up the amount of draft capital and DJ Moore for the same opportunity, the same swing, right? With a little bit better chances.
Unless they think the Seahawks would take a quarterback. I don't think they would or should, but they might. I could see them. Okay, you got Geno. I mean, especially because they signed Drew Lock. How many quarterbacks are you going to roster? But I could see potentially at 5. I don't think the Lions will, but at least the Seahawks, I could see trading out, even if you wanted to move up a bit. If you wanted to skip the Raiders and the Falcons, you could have moved up to 6 or whatever. 6 is the Lions. You could move up to 5 or 6.
At least a QB, right?
And and made sure you got a QB and would get a decent QB. And because it's unlike unless you think the Cardinals could trade down, that could I don't know. I don't think there's the sort of guy in that level. And I mean, I'm also a sort of build the team and have the team ready for the quarterback to step in and then trade all your picks, which obviously could sometimes not go well if teams don't want to trade with you, because if they trade for your first round picks, they might think they'll be the 32nd pick in the draft if you're too good, because they may not think there's a good trade value there. But if there's a way, if you think you can build a good team, be middle of the pack win wise, and then swing big, and then do the big blockbuster trade for Josh Allen, or
exactly.
Or do the big blockbuster trade in the draft.
I would be fine if they said, okay, and we've seen this, and it has gone poorly, and it's gone well in terms of, hey, we're going to give up capital for this QB that we know is good, And Russell Wilson is an example of like it hasn't been going so well so far, but we only are 1 year into that. But like at least we know what Russell Wilson is. He's at very least he's a franchise quarterback. We don't know. We don't know about these guys, and statistically they could all be great, but they're probably not going to be. So it's
the Panthers do still have. They do still have their second or someone's second at the 39th. So they do still have more picks in this draft at least, and because of like that trade with the 49ers, because of that trade with the 49ers and stuff like that, they do still have a handful of picks. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Texans have so many picks. Texans have an insane number of picks.
Yeah, good for them. Good for them for sucking for years and then just trading away anything that they had for the rebuild. Any thoughts on anything you want to talk about specifically, good or bad, from other moves in the offseason?
Moves.
What do you want to hit on?
I think this is a more what I'm curious about your take on. Okay. I'll give my take on it first, I suppose, as well. But the Giants signing Danny Dimes at $40 million a year, is that a 2-year deal? Was it? I think it was a 2-year deal.
4-year deal.
It's a 4-year deal.
It's like 2 years guaranteed or something like that. Yeah, that's right. Where after 2 years, after 2 years, they can get out of the contract pretty easily. So that's what it was. I think. So where the Giants were, they were 20th in the 20 range. I don't know what the Giants' cap space situation looks like, because depending on their cap space situation, I mean, they just paid Danny Dimes $40 million a year. They probably got half decent cap. If you're if they're paying that, all right. Yeah. I wonder how much like if they talked, like could have talked to Lamar, or if they could have gotten a rough idea, because that could have been interesting. But frankly, other than that, I mentioned that because I see that as the exception of a move that would be good. If they could have gotten Lamar, they were a playoff team, things were working well, good coaching, whatever, that was elevating the players. I could have seen that, because they'd have a late first, but they weren't drafting a quarterback this year, right? I mean, they could, but they would have had to hope the milkman Will Levis falls to them, or something like that, or they would have to trade up for a quarterback, which I would not have liked in their situation. So I kind of like this, because I think Danny Dimes at 40, I guess Jimmy G was paid maybe $30 million a year. They could, like, if they could have thought like it's kind of like, what's their alternative? They're starting to be competitive, right? They made the playoffs last year. They won a playoff game against a not especially impressive Vikings team, but a Vikings team with a great record anyway. And they won a playoff game. And that makes me think, okay, Danny Dimes he took a bit of a step up last year. There were some games there I remember watching where I was thinking Danny, get Dimes some help. Give him some dudes to throw to. Give him a right tackle. I know they have Andrew Thomas on one side, or actually they have good tackles, but one of them's Evan Neal, I think, is a rookie. But that sort of give him some help with the offensive line. I think when they played the Cowboys, he had some record number of times being pressured or something. There was some sort of crazy, some of these games he's under a lot. He's not getting a lot of help, and that's when I could see them. I think this move is decent because it's a short-term deal. If he ends up here's $40 million, so much. That is so much. I would have wanted that to be 35 if I were the Giants, or 30, something more in that range. So that is a lot for what I'm thinking is that situation. But I think it's a decent sort of prove it deal. They're in this middle ground area where they can start to compete, and where they're too good to have these high draft picks to take swings at quarterbacks at. And I don't think they should trade, because I think they need to do stuff with those picks. I think those picks need to go into improving the team, active, the picks need to be spread out across the team rather than trying to take a swing at a quarterback when the team's not ready, which is where I think the Panthers are potentially be, especially after they traded DJ Moore. But and that's why I like this. I like this, or at least I think it's fine anyway. I think it is a. I can't think of too many moves better. I think there may be moves better. I think acquiring Lamar Jackson maybe would have been better, considering where their draft picks are, considering they're it's not like a team if the Falcons wanted it, they'd have to give up their 8th pick this year. And that could start being stuff like that starts getting complicated. But if you're a team like the Giants, I could see that move might be interesting, might have been interesting, can't do it now. But I think given that if they weren't going to do that anyway,
I think this move's decent because what else were you going to do? And it gives a chance for, hopefully Daniel Jones continues the trajectory he was kind of on. Hopefully. Thoughts on this move?
I think this is great analysis because it's a little bit I don't know. I haven't heard a lot of positive things about the Danny Dimes contract, so I like hearing a different perspective.
I gotta defend.
Yeah, you gotta defend the someone has to.
Hey,
I don't like this move at all. It was on my list of moves that I don't like here on my notes.
Yeah.
Listen, Daniel Jones, the Lamar Jackson comparison is a great one because a lot of the things that people are concerned about with Lamar, you could say it's the same concerns for Daniel Jones, except he's worse on pretty much every level. Lamar has much higher winning percentage. And yes, I guess they have the same amount of playoff wins, but it's like, Lamar is like 1-3 and Daniel Jones is 1-1 or 1-0, I guess. So you could say that, but people for some reason are still concerned about Lamar Jackson's throwing ability. I don't think he's had the most amount of weapons.
About that. Yeah,
right. I don't think he's had the best.
I would not be concerned about that
number of weapons, but some people are. Some people still say, "Hey, he's more of a running back, right, than a quarterback." But Daniel Jones, you have the same concerns about, and he's much worse. A much worse passer than Lamar, I would say. He's a worse runner than Lamar. He's basically Lamar.
I think that's true.
He's like the junior version of Lamar, right? And he gets this long-term contract while we're still. It's tough to know what Lamar's asking for. I just know that it was pretty quickly into the free agency window that they signed Daniel Jones to this contract, and I don't know how everything else shook out in the timeline, but did they look at Derek Carr, right? Derek Carr went and signed for $37 million in New Orleans.
I think they may have signed. I think it may have been this was just like hours before the free agency started. So I wonder if they still talked to them or something. But they agreed to this. I think because they didn't want Daniel Jones to hit free agency, maybe, or he didn't he wanted however it all worked. I think it was just before free agency. So I don't know if they legally or technically could have. Obviously they could have done their back channel ways to figure out what Derek Carr would have wanted, but
see, all that is pointing to that is sending the message of we're not even gonna test free agency because we think we have our guy. That's what's really odd about it. Yeah, because I think everybody knows we're not so sure, right? No. We're not so sure about this. And are you really sure about Daniel Jones? You want to lock him up for you want Daniel Jones for 4 years, $40 million on the Patriots?
Do I lock up this take? Do I put my money where my mouth is right now in the offseason before the season starts?
And then he goes out and has an MVP season.
That
would be unbelievable.
I got permanent bragging rights for my Daniel Jones defense. I'm not going to do that. No. It's a lot of money.
You could stick by your take. It's take.
A lot of money.
You don't have to be like Daniel Jones is the next coming of Christ. You don't have to go that far. I'm just saying. I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Did they even did the Giants, because they do have a little bit of an out in 2 years, but they could have franchise tagged him for around, I think, maybe $45 million for this year, and then let him walk or whatever. So I just don't know if this is their guy.
Yeah. But then they lose Saquon.
And then they lose Saquon too.
Unless they sign Saquon to a deal, but I don't know what that looks like.
I think that's fine because I don't really believe in playing the running backs. But I just think it was a lot in comparison to what you could go out and get. Jimmy G, he signed for like 32, didn't he? Sign for like 32. Yeah. Is Jimmy G that much worse than Daniel Jones? I think he might be better. I would say he's better.
Maybe here's the difference for Daniel Jones compared to Jimmy G and compared to Lamar Jackson. And I would say, and I am not as cold on Lamar Jackson. I've said privately, I think him to the Patriots would be a very fun, exciting thing to have happen. Whether I think it should happen or not, that's a separate thing. But here's the big difference. I don't know if Daniel Jones has missed very many games. I'm not sure. I can't think of him. There was the game there's the game they had to play Wildcat last season. Remember, I forget if they won or not. But there's the game Saquon was at quarterback and Dimes was just there to get the calls in his helmet and then go wide out just to not be in the play. But like he hasn't had too much injury concerns, whereas Jimmy G, but of course he played on the 49ers. They're known for injuring quarterbacks. Like
you know what that is? It
of course
is
that's different. And Lamar, he had to, so that's the one thing I would say with Daniel Jones. The comparison is that you're paying him a bunch more than say Jimmy G, but you're more confident he'll make it through a season. And for me, that's what we're talking about two different topics in a sense here. But now with Lamar, that's part of where the one concern I could see teams having is the more injury being on the field concern. Because I'm not concerned about his production. I think if he's on the field and if he was producing at a pretty high level, even with, Joes and Larrys, what was it, milkmen and plumbers or whatever the whatever it is, with like random dudes on the field other than Mark Andrews, and he's producing. And so I'm not worried about the production level. I'm not worried as much about the total money. I see where a team might be worried about guarantees is the idea of him of staying on the field and that sort of thing. Like that's the whole thing there, and that's why I can see a team like the Giants saying, you know what, let's lock up Dimes. Okay, Dimes, he's young. He's not that expensive if you think he'll be elite, which is obviously big leap of faith to think that he would be elite. I'll be honest. You gotta have a lot of hope in your heart to think that. But if you think that he might be a good quarterback, if you think he could be just a good quarterback, he could be number 10. If you think if you could see a world where you think Daniel Jones and Nimes, is number 10, then $40 million a year for him ain't bad.
Not bad. No.
If you think he could be the 10th quarterback in the league, and if you think, okay, now like you think the trajectory, so on, and a guy who frankly has not had much injury trouble that I'm aware of during his career, despite the fact that despite the running component of his game.
It is true that they didn't reset the market. You're right. They didn't reset the market. Yeah. Dak Prescott basically got the same exact deal with a little bit more guaranteed money 2 years ago. Dak is getting paid $40 million a year, right? So
that's
and
good for
he
Cowboys.
was close to the top of the market, right?
Yeah,
I would say Dak is definitely better than Daniel Jones,
yeah.
but Dak is I would say Dak has underperformed that contract. I don't think that he has really delivered in terms of getting $40 million the last 2 years. $40 million now is different than it was 2 years ago. Now it's starting to get the franchise tag is getting to be over. It's like $45 million. The exclusive franchise tag, I should say.
Yeah.
So, because Rodgers is now getting paid freaking $50 million or something. This year. So, I it's not the worst contract. I just didn't like it. Any moves other moves that you didn't like or that you did that you want to talk about?
Yeah, good move. I think interesting move. 49ers sign Javon Hargrave to a big deal. I think it's like 4 years, $80 million or something like that from the Eagles D line last year. This guy had a pretty good season as an interior defensive lineman, I believe. And I mean, for me, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, wow, that is when the 49ers are spending more on their front seven. Like, jeez, they're dropping $20 million a year on this defensive tackle. What is that? The Eric Carr said John Hargrave, Nick Bosa as three of that like front four rushing the passer. Then you still have you got good linebackers, Greenlaw, Warner. Like that front seven is like scary right now. How much money is being poured into that? I know. The Commanders are doing something similar where the Commanders paid, re-signed, I think, Payne. I forget his first name. The 49ers are re-signing some of their guys and are spending a ton of money on their front seven, their front four. But for me, this deal is really interesting to me. I mean, I'm someone who was towards the end of the season was really, giving the 49ers a lot of love already. So I would admit, I don't see a lot of holes on this roster other than quarterback. Which is guys getting hurt.
So do you like this?
Do you like this move? So I think I like it, but in the sense that I might just like watching it. I don't know if I like it. I think if I like the idea of spending this much more on a front seven that's already so amazing, I'd have to think if I like that.
Yeah.
But I like it in the sense that I think this will be fun to watch. I think it'll be fun to watch the power on this defensive line. I mean, it's kind of set like I'd expect this defensive line to have a similar season as the Eagles' defensive line did last season. For one thing, I mean, having Javon Hargrave there, but like there's just so much talent on that defensive line that I would think that similarly to what the Eagles had last season. I would think that they can have the rotations or whatever. I would think that they could dominate, and it would be fun to watch.
It is going to be fun.
Is it the best move? I don't know. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money for a somewhat older defensive tackle who I don't think has always had a ton of production. Of course, with some of this, not everything shows up on the stat sheet, especially for an interior defensive lineman. It doesn't always show up on the stat sheet, the sort of presence that they can have. But like, so that's kind of my worry. My worry is he's somewhat older. It's a lot of money. Are there better places they could have used that money? Like, do they think they could have gotten, I believe I put this down, Orlando Brown Jr. at the tag? Like, do they think they could have improved their offensive line maybe? Tried to give guys like Brock Purdy / Trey Lance a bit more protection in the pocket sort of thing or something that maybe that would have been better. So I don't know if it's the best football move, but I think it's a good, I think it's a good move for the viewers. I'm curious your thoughts.
Listen,
on this big,
I can't argue that this is a bad move. I think this is a good move. In a vacuum, you look at that defense. How are they supposed to block these guys? Anybody? Like, and maybe the money's a little bit overpaid, but actually his production should go up because
it should, yeah.
Because there's so many guys to block, you can't double team everybody. So it's going to be incredible. But I agree with you. It's strategically, if we're going to go out in free agency, we need to get our quarterback. Do we really trust Trey Lance to be able to bring us home? We went to the NFC Championship game on a fifth string with a fourth string QB turning into a fifth string QB, right? We ran out of QBs. And I know you're saying, hey, we loaded up the gun. We went and got Sam Darnold. Okay. No. All right. I would be thinking that this team everywhere else already is stacked, like you said. Everybody said this is easily the most talented roster. And you've got one problem, and I don't think that they've addressed it. Unless you really think that Trey Lance is the guy who he's started 3 games in the NFL over like the last couple of years.
In the last 3 years.
With an injury history at this point now. And in college he didn't play much. He very well could be the next Patrick Mahomes, but he might just be another first-round bust. And so then what do we have?
I think was he injured his first year, or was it just they just wanted to ride with Jimmy G? I forget.
I don't remember. I think it was a little bit of both. I don't remember.
Was it a little? I don't know. I just wanted to fact check slightly, or like on the injury history thing. I wanted to just confirm.
We had Jimmy G. We had Jimmy G, and we think that maybe that wasn't enough, so we went and we swung with Trey Lance. Let's keep swinging, but with a QB we know. I just would hope that they went and pursued Lamar, Aaron Rodgers, even
so much
Derek
money for
Carr.
them though. But some of those guys, I mean, how much money?
Can make it
I
work.
wonder.
Trade some contracts, cut some guys.
You know what? You're right. Cap is fake. You're right.
Cap is fake.
I forgot.
Cap is fake. I
forgot the cap is fake.
Do we think that this is going to put them over the top? Do we think that they already have a stacked team everywhere except QB? I don't think that this is the move. They're ready. Just get them a guy who can, stay healthy and pass the ball.
Unless we think this elevates this defense to generational, to use the buzzword, generational levels. Like unless we think this is going to be, was it 2015? I think Broncos, that sort of or that level of defense. Right. If they think this is going to get them to that level, it's like the 2000 Ravens. I think it was 2099, whatever it was. There's so with Ray Lewis, not sponsored. Some of the, I'm not sponsored by Ray Lewis. Okay, every time I name drop something, I got to say that. No, but unless that's got to be the hope. The hope is that you go to that tier, that echelon. To use some fancy words, you get to that level of defense where it's yeah, even if we don't have a quarterback, we still win. Like if we literally have a dude back there, if we have 95-year-old Peyton Manning back there, we could win. If they think that this gets them to that level. They did lose their defensive coordinator. They did lose their defensive coordinator, D'Amico Ryans, to the Texans as well, which I think will be a loss there but they seem to replace coordinator as well. But still, I mean, exactly. I don't know if this move elevates them to that level of historical greatness, and if it doesn't, then it is you're kind of just adding you're putting in more money, but you're not going to get much out. You're really trying to grind blood from a stone.
Right, they're right there. They're right there. They're so close. Just figure, and maybe they haven't figured out. Maybe Trey Lance is the answer. Maybe Brock Purdy's the answer. Sam Darnold. I don't know.
They got a roster 4 quarterbacks. Should also re-sign Jimmy G. But yeah,
what's the any other moves you want to hit on? I do want to point out that Derek Carr did go to the NFC South. We called that out. Yeah. We both said that it made sense for Derek Carr to go there. He could be the best QB in the division. And we both said, I mean, I remember saying I didn't think that it would be the Saints because of the cap, but once again, you said cap is fake. So the Saints situation is really bad from what I understand, but it's fake, so it's fine.
Yeah, Michael Thomas's cap hit is $60 million next year. Don't know how that works.
Aren't they still paying Drew Brees too, or something? Like they're still. No. That's not how it works because it accelerates. There's stuff going on. It's a problem. Yeah, but we did call that.
I think this is a last hurrah, maybe for the Saints, where they were bad enough to get the 10th pick. I guess, but they didn't even wasn't Jameis Winston hurt for part of this year, maybe? Was he not? Didn't play especially well. I know I predicted him to play pretty well, didn't play especially well.
And then when he came back, they were still they were going with Dalton when he was...
they had the Red Rock.
QB by committee down there.
I think this is a decent move for the Saints if they somehow think Michael Thomas will play. That's part one. If they think Michael Thomas will actually be on the field. And 2, if what they're hoping for is a playoff is like a playoff win, which they may not even get. And let me be clear that I'm not saying they're going to get a playoff win. It's not my prediction. But I'm thinking if that's their objective, if their objective right now is, hey, we want, we haven't won in a bit. We want to keep the fans happy. We want to give some of the guys we have in our Marshawn Lattimore, whoever else, Alvin Kamara. We want to give some of these guys, Michael Thomas, a last hurrah, a last chance. You want to take a last swing with some of these guys before we succumb to cap, before the cap overwhelms us, like that.
They're going to bankrupt.
Before we go bankrupt, and that's why. And they say, okay, because they have a first round pick now, right? I think that's how. It's snaked for the Sean Payton trade, and I think they have one from that. And so I could see they're gonna say, okay, we're gonna get this first pick. Let's sign Derek Carr. We're in a warm weather climate because apparently you can't play in cold weather climates. He has carried teams before. He has been a big player on some Raiders playoff teams before. Last year, the fact that they made the playoffs in the whole situation of losing Gruden and everything. Right. Classic John Gruden. End of a couple years, he has been on playoff teams before, and he has been a big part of those playoff teams before. I'm not trying to defend him too much, but from the Saints' perspective, they're going to look at this. They're going to say, hey, okay, we got some older players on their way out. We can't afford to pay. We have some young stars. Chris Olave is a good young star. We now have a first round pick here that we can use on something, and we're in a terrible division. An absolutely terrible division. They're going to look at that and say, okay, get Derek Carr. He's carried teams before. We put him on this team. We make the playoffs, right? I'd have to pick, unless I'll have to do some analysis, but I'm pretty sure they're going to make the playoffs. I'd be willing to have that be my take now. Of course, I'm not, because the draft doesn't happen. Stuff is still happening. But that's the sort of thing. I'd be fairly confident that this team will make the playoffs where they are. In the NFC and so on. And I could see, hey, they make the playoffs, go against a weak opponent, week one. Go against a team like how the Giants have to play against the Vikings. Have a matchup like that. And I could see a situation, kind of play out where they win a playoff game, right? If I'm the Saints, I'm thinking that anyway. I'm hopeful enough if I'm the Saints.
Hey, just you gotta get into the dance, you know.
And then you gotta get into this, and then it's like, okay, well, cool, right? You're now Saints. I think that's where winning a playoff game is pretty good. A lot of teams don't. A lot of teams don't win a playoff game. Saints haven't in a bit. Saints have not in quite a bit. So that's what, like, that's my sort of thinking here. That why I could think this could be decent is a pretty good. I would dare I say good, because the Saints are in such a bad situation. Like, in terms of, do we rebuild? Do we try to do we go for it? Like, they're in that terrible middle ground anyway. So I think, given the division, given their cap, all these things, I kind of like this.
I don't hate it. I don't know if I'd go as far to say I like it, but it's better than a lot of the moves that I like. It's better than paying Daniel Jones more. Like, I definitely like. I think that I feel better about the $37 million number after the Daniel Jones, signing for 40. So, but it's kind of one of those things where I agree, like, with everything you're saying. It makes sense if they're just trying to stay slightly relevant. And obviously they think that that's a gettable division. So they could very well be in the playoffs. They could very well, they could win a game, like you said.
Yeah, could. So, let's be.
So, but if that's the bar, it's just not very interesting, right? It's just kind of like, okay, Saints are going to be a possible, easy first or second round game
matchup
for an actual team, right? So, I don't know. I do want to say something I did particularly like is I like Baker to the Bucks. This is the type of thing that for me is a value.
I think this is good.
Is a value pickup in the QB free agency market. Even if he's not that great, an $8 million backup, we're seeing that now. We're seeing decent backups going for that much. And so even if you wanted to give a younger QB a shot or something like that, you could do that as well at this time.
And if not, and if you want to try to get the Baker Renaissance, if you think the Baker Renaissance may happen, he had some good games in the Browns, right? You hope that the Baker Renaissance happens. There's still some offensive talent and stuff on the Bucks. If Mike Evans plays how we would hope he plays, Chris Godwin, I think he's still on the team. I forget what's happening in free agency. I could see this.
Baker took a team that in a 2-year period won one game. and
add Baker and they make the playoffs. Yeah,
right. He had
I forget the first year,
3 or 4, not the first year, but he had 3 or 4 head coaches, and then he went to the playoffs and he beat the Steelers, a divisional, rival in the playoffs in the wild card round. They beat the Steelers and won a playoff game, right? Like, he did that for Cleveland. Like, you have to give some respect to him. For a garbage franchise, getting them to a playoff win, that's a lot for the fans there.
For a team like the Browns, for the Browns, right? Because that's the frame of reference we got to live in. Yeah.
Right. So, and then between everything going on with them giving Deshaun Watson, trying to get Deshaun Watson, it rubs him the wrong way. They end up sort of losing that relationship.
That's all funny.
He falls out of it. He has a tough time in Carolina. Didn't look good at all. But then went to LA and I thought looked okay. And had some moments that were like, he has flashes.
Yeah, that game he came in. Yeah,
came in with 1 day of practice. Like that's just good old fashioned football. I mean, that's just classic nitty gritty. What's the play call? We're running verts. Let's go. He definitely had moments like that. So I like it. I just like it as a value pickup and. I agree. They're not committed to it. They can go do whatever they want next year. If they suck, maybe they pick up a QB in the draft or they whatever. So I don't know. That's something I want to put out.
I like that. Yeah. Oh yeah. I definitely agree. I think one move I would also highlight, I think is good, but I want to put a note on it too, is the Bengals with the big signing of the tackle Orlando Brown Jr. Pretty big signing, pretty big deal, and so on. The one, so I think just generally it's good because that's obviously been a big weakness of the Bengals. Just generally, has been their offensive line and has been protecting Joe Burrow or Joe Burrow taking 20 sacks, whatever. That's been a big issue. So investing more into offensive line, I think, is good. One note I think I'd say about this is this is a good move, right? Straight up, no other caveats on that. But what I would say is I think part of the issue in the playoffs was also their interior offensive line. Which may have came down a lot to injuries, though. That being said, is that I think their offensive line in some of those games was banged up when they had to play the Chiefs. Their offensive line, I think they might have been down. I think this is true. I hope I'm not spreading misinformation, but I think they were down. Like they're starting 3 interior offensive linemen. They may have all been out, which is not good. They at least there were at least a number of them out, which is not good, especially because sometimes teams have strong interior rushers. I think the 49ers will, for example, with Armstead and Hargrave. But the Chiefs, they had to play against Chris Jones, a guy who I think I may have picked to be Defensive Player of the Year, given his position and everything, for last year. They had to go against him, the sack machine from the inside, and with no guards, right? Or with no with their guard and center out. So I could see some depth there / improvements there also helping, because yes, tackles are very important, and especially with how good edge rushers are and so on. But that's why this is a good move. It's 100% a good move. But I would say I don't think this necessarily will save the Bengals, because I don't know if their issue in the AFC Championship was the tackles. I think it may have been the interior line or scheming or any number of things. But I think that's one caveat I guess I wanted to put on the whole signing.
You would hope that it, like, if they want to shift players around, that they have the versatility to be able to do that. But I'll tell you what, I don't have much faith in them going and getting good offensive linemen in free agency, because they played better at the end of the year and they played okay overall. But that team looked awful to start the year. That offensive line, that unit looked awful after all those moves last year. So I'm just a little bit skeptical, but this should help. Yeah. Right? This should help.
Yeah,
so, we'll see. But I don't know. I don't have much else in terms that I wanted to highlight. Anything besides just Lamar being like, it's shocking that he's not.
That's its own. That feels like its own segment. I know it kind of bleeded into some segments earlier. That we have to sequester off to its own thing. I mean, I guess I have other things, but we'll kind of talk about them, I think, in a second in the next segment. But I mean, I think the Jalen Ramsey trade is very interesting for the Dolphins, and I think the Pats are making some interesting free agency acquisitions as well with Juju Smith-Schuster and Mike Gesicki. So I would say, we can probably transition to the next. Yeah,
let's talk about the Patriots here. Let's hear what you got on the Patriots. Their free agent signing, what you like seeing with the coaches and everything. What do we got?
Oh yeah, I think the Bill O'Brien signing, great signing. That being said, pretty much any guy who is not a defensive coordinator or special teams coordinator, I would have said the same thing. So that this is potentially less me praising Bill O'Brien, more me praising that it's an actual offensive coach now, that we have an actual offensive coach playing at the offensive coach position, which I like. I would say I like. I think that will be a big step up, because I think that in a lot of ways it looked like the Patriots offense took a step back last year. Last I was mixed up the years. I feel like in a lot of ways they took a step back, and for some of it, I wouldn't even blame Patricia. I mean, obviously I do, but I wouldn't even blame him a lot, because for one thing, he should have never been in that position, but he also had to be offensive coordinator and O-line coach, because they lost their O-line coach. I think he either retired or he went with Josh McDaniels to Vegas. Like you had a defensive guy coaching, had to coach the offense and call plays, but then he also had to be offensive line coach, which might explain why the offensive line was not playing to the level that I would have hoped. They do, especially after spending a first round pick on an offensive lineman, on an offensive guard. So I think in terms of the moves they made,
still there? Sorry, let me ask. Is Patricia still there? Or what's the situation? What's going on?
I don't know. I believe that's still in flux. I do not believe he's officially out, but he's not offensive coordinator. So whether they'll find a home for him on the defense, this is what I think. I don't have this 100%. Whether he's going to be on the defense, similarly with Joe Judge, whether they're going to move Joe Judge back to special teams where he was before he was on the Giants, or whatever. I don't know what's going to happen with them, but they got their guy, Bill O'Brien, which I like. I like their free agent signings. I think I like in this situation letting Jacoby Myers go and then getting Juju Smith-Schuster for the same money. I like that. I'd much rather have Juju Smith-Schuster than Jacoby Myers. I like Jacoby Myers. He was a good. He and Mac had some synergy there. That he was a main target, but I think Juju Smith-Schuster is a better player. So that's what I like. I like that. I like Mike Gesicki, the signing there too. I think part of why his numbers weren't as good last year is some of the scheme stuff. He's more of a pass. He's a wide receiver who lines up at tight end, right? A lot of his snaps are taken from slot or from other positions on the field, not necessarily at the tight end position. He's not especially a very good blocker. In fact, he might be a bad. He's not a blocking tight end in any sense of the word.
And he didn't fit in the Mike McDaniel, San Francisco
exactly
type of shit. Exactly, what you're saying.
Yes, exactly. So he didn't fit quite in that offense, and I mean that's an offense dominated by two very good receivers, Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, and stuff like that. So I can see why his numbers would fall a bit. And I think this is good because I think the Patriots just need pass catchers. I think they can run. They've ran two tight end sets before. Bill O'Brien has ran two tight end sets before. Mike Gesicki has played for Bill O'Brien in college. So that's why I think that signing is fine. It's a 1 year deal. Even if it goes badly, it's only a 1 year deal. And I think it's another weapon. It's another. Jonnu Smith did not like for whatever reason he did not work especially well for the Patriots. Whether that's him or how he was used or whatever, it did not work well at all. I did not like him on the team. Just from play standpoint, that doesn't mean I think he's necessarily a bad player, but it just wasn't working. It just wasn't working. And I think replacing him with a good tight end, a guy who's typically has been thought of as a good tight end, just does not help you in the blocking game, I think is fine. I think I like that I like these pass catching options that they've added. I don't know if they've done too much on their defense yet. I think they've released like Jalen Mills. They've released some guys. I can't think of many moves they've made on the defensive end yet. But that's the end that I have more faith. I have more faith in Bill to work out the defense. No matter who's out there.
Good. Sometimes it's
they're gonna work it out. I think Devin McCourty did retire. That is one notable thing. I believe he had been it is. I think he had been the league leader in like the active interception, like guy with the most interceptions of active players, I believe. Part of that being he had just played for so long. But yeah, that's definitely one of the old guard leaving, right? One of the last, maybe the last of what I would say the old guard, because Devontae Hightower had left. Like they didn't re-sign him. Not a lot of super old guys on the offense. It's sad, but yeah, I mean that's him leaving. Definitely, but at the same time, the Patriots roster like a ton of safeties. The Patriots roster, so many safeties, it's crazy. They have like three other safeties ready to go, and Taylor Rapp of the Rams has been visiting Foxborough, I think, so they'll potentially sign another safety. There's a decent chance they draft. I've been hearing Brian Branch, who is like a kind of hybrid safety slot cornerback sort of thing. There's some buzz about them potentially drafting him. I've seen drafting another safety. Patriots are big on their safeties. I think they'll make do on defense. So I'm not worried about I think defense will be what it's always like, which has been pretty good for the past 10 years. Obviously, early to 2010s, it was not good, but for those Patriots fans out there. But it's been pretty good for a while, so that's why I have faith. I think that'll work out, and I like what they've been doing on the offense. I think it's as much as you can do without doing a big move. I would like them if they can get DeAndre Hopkins. If they can get DeAndre Hopkins for a third, which I know that the Cardinals may not want to do that. I think the Cardinals want a second or something. But if they can try to work out a deal there, I would like that as well. I think that would be very good. But we'll see. We'll see on that.
All these moves are pretty good. I don't mind them at all. I think that they would be excellent in a division like the NFC South. But I think I texted you this. I mean, are they? I mean, this doesn't feel like a bulk up to sort of make a run here. Many people think that they might be one of the worst teams in the AFC. I mean, the AFC has gotten so there's so many good QBs over there right now, and it's such a strong conference. This feels like, they're stocking up on rifles or something, and everyone else has got tanks. I mean, what, especially in that division? What are your thoughts on the division in general? I mean, realistically, do you think they have a shot in there?
I mean, well, here's one thing. One of the biggest questions of the offseason, as he always does it. He always does it. He does this.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers, right? Who knows what he's going to do? He says he wants to go to the Jets, but why hasn't it happened yet? Why hasn't it happened? If he wants to go, we've been playing this cat and mouse game between the Jets and Packers, and Aaron has been happening for like 2-3 weeks. It just won't end. It won't end. What's going to happen?
He was in the dark.
And he was in the darkness. He was in the darkness. But we did the darkness bit. We did that bit on the podcast like a month ago or more. Like at some point, like something's got to happen there. So that for me impacts it. Because I think if the Jets get Aaron Rodgers, I think they win that division. Dare I say, again, this is before free agency's not done.
Right.
Other teams are making other moves. This is a very preliminary take.
Because he said he wants to go there. I think that
but he said
end up
if
there.
they get him, that's if they get him, unless something crazy happens with some other team, unless Patriots trade for Lamar, right? Unless that happens, or like do the exclusive franchise tags business, like unless something happens like crazy that you would define as crazy, I think the Jets win if they get Aaron. So that's why that. But if they don't get Aaron, if they're out there rocking Zach Wilson or whoever is a free agent quarterback, Jacoby Brissett. I'm not sure who's a free agent quarterback. Like if they rock in one of those guys, I think I don't have faith in them in the Jets. Maybe the Jets get third, maybe, but I think Jets might get fourth, even with the good players on their team. If they don't get a quarterback, they're bending over backwards for it. If they don't get it. I think that's one issue I think in that division. I mean, the Dolphins. Let's see how Tua plays. They signed Mike White to a pretty decent backup deal. But I think we're gonna have to see how Tua plays because I mean, like how he plays concussion wise, obviously like the injury concern, which I think is a concern. For me, that's a concern because if they lose Tua, I think they're blessed. Even with Tua, like if they lose Tua, I mean they got good cornerbacks, they got a decent secondary there, and they got good wide receivers. But if they have to start Mike White, I like Mike White as a backup, but I don't think he's a starter, a playoff starter, a starter.
I forgot Mike White went to Miami.
He went, yeah, I know, yeah. that's a move. If he has to be the number one option, I don't think he's going to do it. I don't think, which is not like I think he's a good I think for a backup he's good. This is not Mike White slander, but he's not a starting quarterback. If he was a starting quarterback, he'd be starting, right? And if Tua ends up he can't really play, which I think is a valid concern, a valid possibility, then I think that's one thing. I've also been cold on the Dolphins, right? We know this. We've been over this. Fans of the show know that I've been ice cold even before sort of concussion sort of stuff. I've been ice cold. I think the Jalen Ramsey move really could elevate their defense. Yeah, potentially. I think that's a very good move, especially because they had a lot of quarterbacks getting injured and stuff. I think even if you only think about this as from a depth perception, I think it's good getting a good depth guy. But this isn't a depth guy. This is Jalen Ramsey, right? This is a big cornerback addition. I think I'll acknowledge that, but I'm still kind of cold. As I always will be, maybe on the Dolphins, and the Bills have been losing. They did re-sign Jordan Poyer, but they lost Tremaine Edmonds, their star linebacker. They kept Matt Milano, but I think that some of the guys on the team are going to age. I think that we've seen some of the cracks in the armor of the Bills. Perhaps Von Miller will be back. Von Miller will be back.
The Buffalo window is closed. Oh my god!
I'm not saying it's closed. I'm just saying there's cracks. You can start to see the cracks. You can start to see the cracks in the window. You're like, oh, maybe this window is not quite the stellar, craftsman or work of craftsmanship that we all believed it.
That shit ain't double paint.
It ain't double. This window, ooh, yeah, the paint doesn't look great on it. It's just that's all I'm saying. That the Bills, we've seen some of the weaknesses Josh Allen can have. I think Josh Allen runs recklessly. As I know we've talked about some of the ways he can run. It looks like he takes hits. At some point, those hits will add up because he doesn't always run super gracefully or avoid hits. Like Mahomes can avoid hits pretty well. Mahomes avoids hits when he has to scramble out, but that isn't the same part of his game. But sometimes Allen can really take some hits, and I can see they don't have a lot in wide receivers outside Stephon Diggs, who there might be some frustrations there for him for not really getting the playoff success he expects. It seemed like, obviously that's just emotions like that, but I could see the cracks in that team, right? I can see some weakness, and obviously the Patriots have their own set of weaknesses, obviously.
Well, so here's
right?
the thing. So I think this is all great analysis, and I agree with all of this analysis. I agree with all of it. But all that being said, if I gun to your head, I don't mean to be violent. But if you had to say, where do you think? No, just where do you think the Patriots are going to end up? 1 through 4. Where do you think they're going to end up if you had to take your best guess, being honest and realistic?
3, but not necessarily out of the playoff race.
3. Wow. Okay. I definitely got them 4th. I mean, I just do not see it. Even with all that stuff, I could see a circumstance where something happens.
I think one of the teams will collapse. I think one of the teams will collapse, but I think the other teams will be fine or like good enough. But I think it'll be one team will be first and have a very good record. I think 2 and 3, we'll have a win or two over the Patriots. But I think that I don't think the order will be locked in halfway through the season. I think the race between 2 and 3, the Patriots I think will be competitive for the second position in that division until later on in the season. And I think one team will be competitive. Like I think it's gonna be frankly, like it was this season, where the Bills had a great record throughout the season. And the Jets, Dolphins, and Patriots were all kind of middling around the same range. And that's where they've ended. They all kind of ended around the same win range. And I think the same thing's going to happen. I just don't think the Patriots will be the team who are at the bottom of that little 3-way fight between, and last year it was the Dolphins, Jets, and Patriots. I think it could be any 3 teams this coming year. What I will say is I do not think the Patriots, again, short of some crazy thing happening, I can 100% say they will not be the team far and away the best. I'm not that delusional.
Okay.
I may be delusional, but I'm not that delusional.
We're dial in how much delusion there is here. We're dialing.
Yeah, exactly. We're dialing it. We're figuring it out.
It's like not taking to the hospital, but hey, that guy, I don't know about him.
I think the Dolphins. I would also say the Dolphins. I do not think they will be in that competition for first. I think either the Bills or the Jets, if they get Aaron Rodgers, will be the team that is the clear. We figure out halfway through the season they're going to be the 1 seed in the AFC East. I think there'll be a team we figure it out. I think it'll be the Jets or the Bills. If everything goes normal.
And you know what?
The other teams will be fighting. I think it's gonna be a dogfight for the other positions.
It's definitely gonna be a dogfight. And I really like Miami. It's just that I agree. The Tua situation, whether it be literally physically the effects of what happened from this concussion issues, or personally, sort of reservations about playing if that, which doesn't seem to be currently, but I don't know. I just feel that I definitely understand that is concerning. So, but hey, I just wanted to have it on here as record where you're at, as a Patriots fan. So all right, I think we're good to close this one down. It's a nice little catch up here for the
final piece. Thoughts on Ezekiel Elliott being released by the Cowboys?
About time, baby. About time. Listen, he should have been released before he got paid that big contract in Cabo. That was at the end of the time where you were paying running backs. Like guys like Todd Gurley still had contracts and were performing. Really, I think one of the few contracts for a running back that were massive that paid off was Derek Henry. But in recent years, it's just there's a lot of depth at running back, and you're getting a lot out of running backs during their rookie contract and then not a whole lot after. So paying these guys, especially early, it's good for him. I'm happy that he got his money. But it's also it wasn't any good for us when Pollard's been the better back and getting paid a lot less. So we'll pick up some bozo, some guy, and he'll be the running back, and he'll put up good numbers because we haven't. I mean, we had DeMarco Murray leading the league in rushing. I think one year, we haven't had a problem running the ball in a long time. So I'm not super concerned. I think it was good for us. So I liked it.
Yeah.
But All right, so let's close this down. Thanks for watching the 34th episode. Obviously, we are going to be back to talk a little bit about the draft. We're 40 days out from the draft. So we'll be back. I know Jack's pretty excited. We're going to be talking about sort of the biggest stories from the draft leading up to it, and then we'll talk about how it goes after. Hopefully there's some good action the night of the draft. But Jack, you got anything?
No.
All right, well, this was 710 Sports with
Jack
and Jared. Thanks for watching. See you next time.